So hello everyone, and I'm Geeta Gandbhir, and I'm so honored to be here today with fashion legend, icon, activist, former model Bethann Hardison and Frédéric Tcheng, and they are co-directors of the incredible film Invisible Beauty, a documentary that's out in the world and that I actually is one of my favorites this year. 100%. I actually was lucky enough to be at the Sundance Film Festival with both of you. And Beth Ann, I think, spent a little time with you at a party. I'm sure you don't remember. It was probably a huge blur. But what an honor for all of us to be able to experience what is, I think, the definitive memoir and also just an incredible story. So I want to start at the beginning and talk about, how did you two come together? How did this happen?
Thank you,
Well,
Geeta. No,
thank you so
you
much.
go, you go.
It was an interesting journey in a wonderful way. I met Frederick because a producer for the CFDA, which is the Council of Fashion Designers of America. I was getting an award, being honored, and they needed someone to do a 3 minute short, and they went online, this producer, to find Frederick at his documentary on Dior and I at the film festival, and got him to say yes. And he didn't know who I was, but it was still so wonderful. She told me, oh, he said yes. And that's, oh, well, great. And the idea is that he came to my home and he interviewed me for a numerous amount of hours. And I've learned that I didn't know it was that much at the time. And we stayed in touch afterwards. After that, I liked him, and he and I started to have, good talks about me working on a film that I wanted to work on called Invisible Beauty, but it was about the industry. And at that point, it was about the industry, doing an expose on the industry because of the lack of diversity. Eventually, that film idea changed, and I came into accepting the fact that the film should be about me, as other people had urged. And he himself had said to me, I'd like to do something, you like to, because I liked his film on Diana Vreeland, and he commented that was a good idea, that he thought too. And so at some point, when I no longer was doing my other film, I reached out to him once again, because we would talk along those years, and he had great interest in doing the film. And he just agreed to do the film, asked if he could do the film, and I asked him I don't know who came first, the chicken or the egg, but the fact of it is that we got together, but he said the only way he would do the film is if I agreed to co-direct it with him. And I thought, okay, here we go. And this is going to be an interesting ride.
Now, and that's sometimes an unusual, in our industry, an unusual thing for a participant that, the main, we don't use the term subject anymore, but the sort of the main participant in the film to be also a co-director. So Frederick, I'm curious for you, how you came to this. And obviously, I mean, Bethann, being who she is, like, it feels like a no-brainer, but your attraction to the film, to making this film, and then that collaborative process. Talk to us about how that worked.
Well, I mean, as Bethann said, like from the moment we met, Bethann was telling me about Invisible Beauty, this other project, and I was like, yeah, I agree with all the people that told you it should be about you, because I was meeting in real life a person that I feel like, reminded me of Diana Vreeland, and I had made a film on Diana Vreeland, and I told Bethann, I was like, but the great thing is that you're alive, you're vibrant, you're doing things. I can have access to you, like sometimes as a filmmaker and you're doing something archival, you're so limited by the amount of archival that just you cherish every word that they say. And here was this person who was like still at it, doing it. And I was like, I want to do it. I would want to do it if we'd do it together, because I think for me, I was at a point where I was looking for ways to challenge myself, to challenge the documentary form. And, I think there is a artificial line between, I say subject, but maybe I should learn to say participant and filmmaker. And I find that, that creates a lot of tension, and it creates a sense of like ownership that's like not very healthy, in my opinion. the filmmaker feels like they own their film and the participant is out to destroy the film and push their narrative. And I was like, I've been in those situations and I knew that I didn't want to be in those situations anymore. And I knew that I couldn't do it with anyone. You have to choose the right person to partner with because you know you're going to be in the trenches. And that's when, Bethann and I really started talking about, it was 2019, 2020, about what we could do together. And actually, it was like first week of January 2020 when I asked you the big question, the proposal. And and for me, it was, I had seen films where the participants were really participating, and I was interested in that and kind of like breaking this barrier. And I was hoping that we would get to something more authentic, maybe more honest, and also more like deeper in the relationship that we were able to establish and the trust that we were able to establish. And I think, like without that, I don't think we'd have the same film for sure.
No, I think I love that. And honestly, the reason again for we use the term participant now is that, documentary that has a colonial history, right? Which I think where it was just what you said, Frédéric, right? There was the subject and it's sort of as if the filmmaker is royalty, like it's a very, and I love that you all sort of broke through that trope, and again, it's a full, because this is your story, Bethann, right? This is your life story, your work, your history, and to be able to participate in it fully in the telling and have ownership of that is so important. I mean, can you talk to us about what that experience was like for you, again, being in this role on the film? Was it a natural fit? Was it new?
I think for me, I'm glad you just said that because you gave me a little bit of my answer. It was like a natural fit because I too, before he had asked me, I was wanting to make a film that was about the industry, talking about the suppression of the models of color, any color. And I basically was there, but then I didn't have it anymore because I had just stepped away from it. And he came along asking me to do something that I didn't think to do. I just wanted to get a film made, but to have the opportunity to have someone's experience and have someone do it. And I'm a Libra, we like partnerships, a balance, and it was just a wonderful thing for him to ask me. And what I was able to do in order to do that is just to step out of my own way. As a filmmaker, I just knew, okay, he has an eye, he has a vision, and he's more the audience. He's he's the fly on the wall for me. So let's let it happen. And I never had a problem with any of the things that we were doing. I never had to say, oh, what are we happening? I can't. The only thing I would just moan about is like, oh, I got to be mic'd again. If I was going out to an event or, because he always said, but you're so good, come on. So in the end of the day, that, but otherwise, no, I found it to be a natural fit. I didn't know, I'll tell you more about that later, I think, but I didn't know so much of who I was or how I was until I saw the film.
All right, well, that's actually, one of my questions. It's sort of a natural lead to it. What was the experience like for the two of you the first time you saw this film? I mean, Bethann, obviously you've lived this incredible life. And, I mean, Frédéric, you're a filmmaker, so I'm just so obviously, you're used to maybe working through this process. But for the two of you, again, in partnership, what was it like to see it? What did this process teach you about yourselves?
I'll start because I'll give us a setup for Bethann's answer. I know that I was really nervous before I showed Bethann the first images. I had shown her like little things, scenes here and there, and we talked on the phone the whole time. And those phone conversations are in the film, so it's not like I was working, in my little corner. But I didn't want to, overwhelm Bethann with like, the first cut, for example, was 7 hours. That was too much. So we brought it down to 4 hours. And then I was really scared because, like if you know anything about Bethann and people who watch the film would know that she will tell the truth, whether the truth hurts or not. it'll be an experience for you to deal with. But Bethann is going to tell you, she's not going to sugarcoat because she doesn't believe in sugarcoating. She doesn't think that there's, people get better through that. So that was the bar was pretty high. And also I think part of the project of the film for me was to make Bethann happy, and to put it in very simple words, to show her what maybe she doesn't take the time to see, which is like the history behind her. And she's so moving forward, and she doesn't collect archives like religiously. She's not someone who's like steeped in the past. And so I wanted to gift her this moment to be like, okay, this is what you've done. Like, you need to know. And so I was very nervous.
Geeta, this is very interesting too for me, because it is interesting when I say to people that I say to many audiences as we have gone on the road in film festival moments and Q&As, I've said, I honestly didn't know I had a story. And people are so stunned by that. But the fact of it is that it's like he just said, sometimes you have to let someone else show you your history. And I think in that particular case, I, as a filmmaker, was open to make the film. But I, as a participant or the person being portraited, didn't realize really what I had done when you see it collectively put together. And I just was so busy being a revolutionary that we don't think about, you don't beat your chest and think about, look what I've done. You just some of the work is hard. I mean, going up against an international industry, naming names of people who have sort of participated in, whether they realize it or not, in racism in a way that was so subtle but consistent, and telling them and naming them and going to the press with that was big. But at the time you're thinking about it, you're not thinking that it is. Somebody's got to do it. I'm the one. You know it. And you're there to sort of basically educate people. So in the end of the day, I think that was my thing. Seeing the film in 4 hours, I looked at it and I thought, wow, this needs to be a series. I got excited. And then all of a sudden, I said, wow. I had to write him. I said, all I could say is, you've made me a believer.
And that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing for a filmmaker to hear, because, again, I feel, as a filmmaker myself, I feel what you must have been going through, Frédéric. It resonates. But I think the other part of this is what you talked about, what I think one of the things that makes this story so relevant, it's about the fashion industry. But I think this is sort of systemic racism that exists in the fashion industry is, sort of ubiquitous throughout our society, right? In every industry you find that you will find the same thing repeated, right? And so I'm curious for you all. A lot of people don't know this, though, about the fashion industry in particular, I think. So why do you think, what made this story to you all, and with the audience you've brought it to, what made it seem so important and relevant even today?
It's just that, so many people because the story is not about racism per se. The film is not about racism. The film is not it's not a fashion film. I mean, it's a fashion related film. It's not just about fashion. It's not just about models. And the title is a big, broad stroke, Invisible Beauty. It could be speaking about a lot of things. And so in this particular case, I think it was very important to just let it be. But the reaction to the film is what made me know. Once he showed it to me was one thing, but once we were, say, got into certain film festivals, or once we went into the audiences and saw the reaction to the audiences, that's when you know what you have. It's not like when you bring it to the table, you don't know what anyone's going to feel about what they're about to eat. But once they taste it and you watch the reaction of what's like salivating on it, then you start realizing what you've got. And then you know that you brought the right thing to task, because you really have. Everyone loves the film. Everyone walks away feeling like, wow, they've learned about someone, but they've also been touched by themselves. It's a mirror reflection of what they could do or how they feel. It's emotional, it's funny. And so for me, I didn't learn what we were bringing to an audience until I met the audience.
The high school audiences were insane. When you talk about history and showing something that, you know, most people maybe hadn't really been aware of, like, I mean, those kids who were like 15, 16 that we met in Toronto, also in Salt Lake City during Sundance, they, you know, they were born yesterday, so they don't, you know, what the activism that Bethann did, they were barely, you know, toddlers, and they got it immediately, and they were gasping when Bethann stepped on stage. They couldn't believe she was real. It was like, it was kind of an incredible
Yeah.
feeling, you know, that it speaks to a young audience, and that they see the diversity that they see, and I don't think they take it for granted, but they're definitely born in an era where this has been possible. They don't know everything that's come before, all the people that helped, and you know, the impact that Bethann has had, you know, on the industry to get us to where we are today. So it was very moving.
Yeah. Yeah, the teenage audience is the cat's meow. When you see you know, young people, and we did it for Salt Lake City, we did it in Toronto, and then we had a New York screening. And these kids got outside the theater and they stood around and they did videos thanking me. I was just, it just touched my heart, because at the end of the day, you know, it's not like it's something that's so, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful in that way, and I'm very proud of that.
Well, I think about the youngest sort of the generation that's come up with Instagram and sort of these with social media, and, you know, that are making themselves into influencers, and, you know, sort of it is so important that we see ourselves represented, right? As BIPOC people, it is critical, because otherwise the damage that can happen to young people is tremendous if they don't have beauty standards that don't include them, or just, you know, again, or don't celebrate them, can be devastating. So I think I feel like they likely recognize what you did in a way that, you know, again, they are included because of you. So that's such a powerful thing. And I think, what do you both hope that, again, there's that lesson of the history, but that audiences take away? Because I think that the activism, to me, is also like, you can make this change. You can change an industry. You can change a culture. Can you all talk about that?
Yeah, I want to add something too, in regards to what you're saying, because the film, once again, it's not so deep to me in the idea of changing a way. It is, of course, we can change the way people think, but it isn't so much about, like I said, once again, about racism as much, that these young kids could appreciate so much. They're looking at a lot of things. They're looking at a woman's life. They're looking at so many different elements, that it's not just because, you know, oh my gosh, she saved the day, and look what now I can feel good about myself too as a person of color. It isn't that, because it's the white kids who really appreciate the film. It's the white elders that sit there and say, my goodness, look what you've done. People reflect and see something in themselves about this film. So what I would like for people to walk away with, especially young people, is, I say oftentimes, you know, listen, don't try to think, oh my God, I got to go home and get busy. Because many people say that to me. Oh my God, this film makes me, I just feel like I need to do something. And I always say, don't think that you can be that woman that's up on the screen. I didn't know. If I look back at it, I'm looking at it like saying, wow, I guess I really was something. But in the end of the day, people are called to earth to do certain things. Not everyone is meant to be the, you know, many people are just there to pull the Trojan horse. Some people are on top of the Trojan horse. So I oftentimes say, listen, just recognize everything that's important in that film that touches you, and recognize your own sense of need of democracy. And I think where we're living right now, we need to understand that democracies can change, and that it's very important to vote. That's all I ask everyone to do. It's just vote. Vote according to what you believe that you want the freedom to have, because it's changing in this world right now. That's an activism that you can really lean into, because it's easier. It's given a choice. It's so easy, you know? So that's the thing that I want people. Walk away from it being educated educated to the fact that you too can make a difference, but the difference that you think you can make is so simple.
I love that. I love that. I think there are so many aspects, as you said, a woman's life. You were also a single mom. Like there's so many things in the story that are universal.
I mean, I want to learn Korean. Come on, come on.
A lot of
but I still, the game changer part of it though, I still think like the takeaway though, is undeniable still, that like you can, in living what is a sort of a life that many people can relate to, you still were able to have a great impact. So yeah, I think it's hard to walk away from that. It's hard to walk away. But please, Frédéric, what do you think? What are your hopes for, and how do you see this film as being relevant? This will be the last question.
Well, I think I would love the audience to think about something that I've been thinking a lot about in the process of making this film, which is like the power of conversation and the power of collaboration. And so I think what Bethann really taught me is that she always says like, don't assume anything about the people you're talking about, because I tend to sort of like, imagine things, and you think the other person is like this, or is meaning this, and you don't really know. Bethann, I've learned, comes at every conversation with an open mind and really just a sense of empathy and recognizing that people are different. People are going to have different opinions. Doesn't mean we can't talk. On the contrary, we should talk so that we can both move forward. And I think that's what we try to do in the film, is really just have a conversation, come at it with our differences. I'm attracted to Bethann for the strength and confidence that she has that maybe I didn't have growing up, and she likes that I can make a film and and tell a story, and that's how I think we change a little bit, the mentalities by just coming together even with our differences. So I think that means a lot to me.
Yeah. And just to add to that, it's true. It goes intergenerational, intercultural, racism being different, and being someone who's so open to be able to allow someone like Frédéric to come into your life. You begin to trust them. A lot of those things that I said during the film, people said you were so open. Well, I was just having a conversation with someone I really got very comfortable with. And I would be talking about things that I didn't know everything was going to be in the film. You don't know what. He loves to keep me talking, and he loves to record. And and I have no fear of who he is, because I am really gangster that way. I really appreciate him, but I also appreciate educating. So it's something that no matter who you are, I'm here to believe that all I'm doing is educating your mind how you can think a different way.
And I wanted to add something, Geeta, because I watched the short film that you made, How We Get Free. And there's a lot of, it's about an activist as well, and a much younger activist today. And but there's like so many echoes, that got me thinking. And I wrote to you on Facebook to let you know, like what Elizabeth says in your film about liberation is not a zero-sum game. I thought that was a powerful statement, and it really reminded me of some of the quotes that Bethann told me in the making of the film about how everyone benefits from, diversity being what she wanted it to be. Like, not just the little black girl, but also the little white girl will feel better because the world is more diverse.
I think for so the film that I did with How We Get Free, again, my co-director is Samantha Knowles, and it's about Elizabeth Epps, who's an activist and now a state representative. She essentially, and this is in Colorado, but so I think Elizabeth Epps stands on the shoulders of women like Bethann, no doubt. It's the leaders who come before that always define us, that we look up to. And Elizabeth, again, is a Black woman who is on the forefront of trying to end cash bail. She's in Colorado and across the country. Essentially, she is trying to end the criminalization of poverty. But on top of that, she is an open abolitionist, and yet won an election, in her state, which is, to us, we had no idea how that was going to turn out. But again, the tenets of freedom that she talks about are that equity, equality, justice, and dignity for everyone is good for a healthy society, you know?
Really is.
Healthy democracy is based on those things. And her vision as an abolitionist is that we don't need, as she calls them, cages for people. If they have all the resources they need to survive and to thrive, right? Like, you don't need prisons and over policing and all these things if people have, you know, clean air, clean water, safe places to live and rest and play, and equal opportunity and education and support for things like mental illness, et cetera, et cetera. You know, and communities can take care of themselves, and strong people don't. It's that idea of strong people don't need strong leaders. You know, they need to build a great community. Like, that is what is needed. And I see this in Beth Ann's leadership. Like, I see there, again, I see what there are so many parallels and similarities.
And that's, and I want to add to that, that's when I always think that hope can actually bring change. You know, when you have the opportunity to do, then you can see a better society. And I think that it's so important, instead of like everybody just stretching themselves apart, is to stretch themselves together, even when it's an uncomfortable situation.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
But so I would love, would you mind, so I know the film was picked up by Magnolia Pictures, which is incredible. Would you mind though, Frédéric, telling us where people can see it online, the platforms?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so Magnolia picked it up and gave us a beautiful theatrical release, and now we're available on VOD. So that means like anywhere you get your movies, you know, iTunes or Apple TV, Prime, wherever you can get Invisible Beauty, you can rent it and you can buy it. So we're glad about that, because you know, more people can see it.
I highly recommend everybody watch. Everybody, please watch this film. It's an important piece. It's not only is it entertaining, but it is a critical piece of our history. And we need to know where we came from to know where we're going.
Thank you.
You want to have the last word? You were going to say something.
Well, I'm always going to say something, but but one thing I'm about to say is this is absolutely true. Thank you so much, and thank you. Yes, thank you, Magnolia Pictures, because I want to say that I was always wanting to be associated, and also wanted to always have a film on the silver screen, and we accomplished that. And I hope that I accomplish even further, that this film becomes a legacy film, and that it's in institutions, schools, and places that when I'm no longer here, that they can still see it.
100%. Well, thank you both so much for making this beautiful film, and you know, for sharing it with the world.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Geeta.
doing this. Thank you.
Thank you.